دایی یه فرصت خوب حالا پشت مدافع خداداد عزیزی توی دروازه گل گل برای ایران خداداد عزیزی باز هم روی زمین گشت سرداران بود و توی دروازه سرداران بود گل به نام آزمونده برای ایران
بزنه کریم انصاری گل توی دروازه کریم انصاری دروازه پرتغال باز شد
علی دایی سام توپ توی دروازه
اشتباه حرکت از کوچان نژاد فرصت برای کوچان نژاد توی دروازه گل برای ایران.
Iran's first action since the year 2019. Welcome back to another edition of Goal Bezan, guys. I'm the host for this particular episode, Samson Tamijani, usually behind the screen of the editing. Today, the guys have brought me on as hosting. I'm joined by Arya Allahverdi and Pezhman.
Thanks for having us on.
Hi, Samson and Arya. I'm looking forward to talk to you guys.
We would be talking about both Uzbekistan and Mali. However, the latter of those two did not even happen. Arya, what info can you provide us on just what went wrong?
Well, the Mali game got cancelled, of course, for coronavirus outbreak within the squad. Initially, there was 4 players who caught it, tested positive 2 days before the game. Then Iran had to fly to Turkey anyway because the camp was set up. They flew over. The camp was fine. They tested negative. The Iran team tested negative, but the Mali team seemed to have tested negative in the morning, but they apparently had some other results that came in, and then they tested positive. 2 more players tested positive, and then the match got cancelled the next morning. So, yeah, it's a shame, but, you know, they had to get a job done. You know, they had to play against Uzbekistan, and that happened. So, yeah.
Yeah, and before we move to the action that did happen with Uzbekistan, Pezhman, I mean, how much of a downer is that for the growth and experience of those players not getting a chance to play against a skilled African team who had just beaten Ghana 3-0?
And it's a good question because due to the coronavirus, this was like the first Iranian national team in a very, very, very long time. So it was not important just only for the players, but especially for the coach. It is what it is, you know. This is bad for Mali as well. We must not forget that. I don't think that they wanted to cancel the game either, but you know, due to precaution, you know, being careful, that was probably the right move to do. But it was maybe bad for the players that didn't have enough time or didn't play at all versus Uzbekistan and had their moment or time to really show themselves on the pitch. No, they lost that chance. So it made things quite difficult for those players. And
this was Dragan Skosic's first match, if you can believe, in charge of Team Melli after being hired what feels like a long time ago. And he did mix it up with the lineup as one usually would for a friendly. It was Niazmand in goal, his first start, I believe, guys, for Team Melli. He had participated in camps before. This was his first start. Moharami, the new addition to Dinamo Zagreb in Croatia. Kenani, Khalilzadeh, Mohammadi at left back. And then it was Amiri, Nourallahi, Hajsafi, Golizadeh, Azmoun, of course, and Tarmi, the latter of which got the goals for Iran for a 2-1 victory. It's important to note they did change to a 4-2-3-1 in the second half. Subs that came on, Kaveh Razai, Nemati, another newcomer, Saman Khodos, of course, joining the English side, Brentford recently, Gaidi, Ali Karimi, and Mohamed Noaf Khan. First, I want to ask about, guys, the new goalie who was committing the defense of Niazmand. How do we think he did?
فرصت تیم ازبکستان رو پای چپش تیر دروازه ایران به لرزه در میاد. حرکت ببینیم چیکار میکنن با این توپ. فرصت داره شمارودوف. دروازه‌مون باز شد. یه فرصت بهش دادیم و اونم تبدیل به گل کرد. ارسال انجام میدن بری دروازه رو تیر 2 پیام نیازمند. توپ خورد به تیر دروازه. این دومین باری که توپ به
Yeah, I thought Niazmand got a lot of criticism after that game. And of course it's his debut. we have a lot of expectations for our goalkeeper just now, because we have obviously Allahverdi and Bezan, who are top goalkeepers playing in Europe. And we do have expectations that we want to have anyone who's replacing them to come in and do well. But he didn't have his best game. That's fair to say. He didn't have a great game. He did make a lot of silly kind of mistakes with the ball at his feet. Gave the ball away a few times. I think he even made a save that he didn't need to make and hit the post. He did make a couple of mistakes, but at the same time, if you look back at Bezan's career early on in Team Melli, he made a lot of mistakes before the 2018 World Cup, which I think he shined in. Before that, he made a lot of mistakes, and a lot of criticism was put towards Bezan. So we need to look at that as well and say, Niazman's a young goalkeeper, you need to give him a lot of time. Allahverdi is the exact same. He's had a tough start to his career at Maritimo, being number 2, number 1, switching in between. So goalkeepers will always have a lot of competition. He has to be given time. But for me, I think Niazman's a very good goalkeeper, and I think he's deserved his place in the national team, and I'm glad he got a start against Uzbekistan.
Yeah, Pezhman, he's had a lot of maybe experience in the camps with Team Melli. He's stayed in Iran. He's done well with Sepahan. He has a tall figure, tall frame, but as Arya said, didn't really live up to expectations for this particular game. Did he deserve this start, Pezhman?
Well, it's always good to let players that usually aren't in the starting lineup or are close to the starting lineup a chance to play in friendlies. So Bezan missing was a good opportunity for other goalkeepers. I was actually expecting Allahverdi to play, but maybe he was supposed to play against Mahdi, which got cancelled. So Niazman made sense to try him out. He's done great with Sepahan in the Champions League as well. So, and being the first game in his first national team game, it's okay to. I mean, we understand that he was a bit nervous. Maybe hadn't his best game. As Arya put it quite well, Allahverdi struggled in Maritimo as well as Bezan in the beginning of his national team career. So, even if he should make a big mistake in that game, we would all forgive him and understand that, in time he will learn and he will adapt and he will grow and become a better player, a better goalkeeper, and more safe. And that's what's so hard being a goalkeeper. One single mistake and you're doomed. That's not the same case with other positions. So respect to Niazman, and I hope you have a bright future.
Yeah, I mean, not to bring any negativity or conflict to this conversation, but, considering he's 25, he's had a number of years of experience in Iran. He's had experience of being in the camps before. I thought the domestic players in general could have, I feel like they looked domestic, like they played in Iran. As for Niazman, in particular, I didn't like his lack of commanding presence throughout the game. I thought he dipped too far back in his positioning a lot, which is kind of a common thing that you'd think that goalkeeping coaches would correct. But in all honesty, I think considering Allahverdi's low amount of Team Melli starts behind Bezan and that he's foreign-based, playing at a higher level right now, considering this is the first game in almost 11 months, remember, I think right off the bat, it would have been more helpful to get things going with him in the starting lineup for this game.
Especially since like the rest of the squad was more or less, the best players, so it was kind of a surprise that Allahverdi wasn't the pick. Like, is Kocic, is this a way of saying that Niazman is number 2 in Iran, or how should we put it? So,
well, I think you said it right, Pezhman. I think you said obviously he could have played against Mali, and obviously he has to give his debut at some point,
Not guaranteed, though. Not guaranteed with these teams having to back out because of COVID.
Yeah, but he has to give his debut at some point. He has to play his first national team game, and I think this was a good opportunity for him. And let's just, because I don't want to overblow this topic too much, it's only one player, but Niazman was coached by Rui Tavares at Sepahan, Portuguese goalkeeping coach, and he really is a well-coached goalkeeper. So Yeah, I mean, made mistakes against that team, okay, fine, but he is good, and I think he's, in my opinion, he's better than Allahverdi, for example. He was third choice in that squad, so I'm happy for him to be in the squad, and I think he'll push Allahverdi and Bezan.
But especially, guys, because it's the manager's debut, and he doesn't have a few crucial players from the AFC Cup in early 2019, which Iran will need for qualifying. Especially the fact that, and we'll touch on this later. Especially the fact that I don't think we've really cemented any opponents for sure for the November camp. I don't think Iran is in a really special place where they can really have all the cushion to experiment. I don't know if we have that privilege right now.
Yeah, I agree.
And moving on from that, going into the analyzing of the players again, it finished 2-1. Not fantastic finishing, I thought. A couple of rusty first few possessions in the offensive third. Azmoun, of course, did find the net in spectacular fashion, although I'm sure a lot of folks at home were not able to view that because of the web streaming issues, but it was a very nice goal.
گل شده فکر کنم. یه سرصدایی میاد. فکر کنم بله تو درون دروازه قرار گرفته، گلی که ما ندیدیم ولی سردار آزمون تونست گل اول ما رو بزنه به تیم.
And then the penalty with Taremi.
میکنه اونجا فرصت داره تیم ایران. مهدی طارمی و پنالتی، کاری که باید میکرده کرد. مهدی طارمی تخصص داره در گرفتن پنالتی، واقعا میزننش که. مهدی طارمی پشت توپ در تقابل با سایانوف، خود طارمی، مهدی طارمی و توپ درون دروازه قرار میگیره. مهدی طارمی حساب کارو 2-0 میکنه به سود تیم ملی فوتبال کشورمون.
Sufficient enough performance?
I think so. Listen, we have probably the best Iranian offensive players that we have ever had in Iranian football history. We have so many good players players like Karim Ansarifard, that not so long ago was like the crucial goal scorer, or even Reza Ghouchanejad. They're not even called up anymore. They're not, we have Sardar Azmoun, Mehdi Taremi. Those two have been so good in their respective clubs in the domestic leagues that you can't put them out. And we have interesting young players as already in Esteghlal have done amazing this season. Young player, his physique, he doesn't look like much, but we can say that about Messi as well. And then we have Kaveh Rezai, and his teammate Ali Qolizadeh, which in my opinion was the best Iranian player in that game. All of these players are doing so well at international club level that we're getting spoiled that we can have players like Kaveh Rezai, and even Sama Qudus is finally back in the national team and playing regular football at club level. We're being spoiled that we are demanding that these players perform well in the national team as well. And I do believe that Skocic can be that coach that can bring out the best out of these kind of players, because Azmoun scored a kind of goal that he does in Zenit St. Petersburg, and Mehdi Taremi, he's like a penalty specialist, so they did what they can do very best, and that's really useful. Because, and this is the last thing I want to say about this, because one issue I think I had with a lot of people probably had with Carlos Queiroz was that some players that did well in their clubs didn't necessarily play the same way in the national team. And that's, of course, because it's two different teams and two different coaches and the way of playing, but you couldn't see the best of some of the players under Carlos Queiroz, because you have to play against different kind of tactics. But here, hopefully, we can see the type of player that Sardar Azmoun is in Zenit. We can see that type of player in the national team as well, and as Mehdi Taremi as well, and a lot of other players in Europe, such as Qolizadeh, which in my opinion should be the first player called up for every starting lineup now until the World Cup.
Yeah, it's a great feeling when you know that you have a solid attacking midfielder in Allahverdi. You have the leading scorer in Russia in Osman. You have the reigning leading scorer in Portugal from Taremi, and Javanbakhsh, who was one of the leading scorers in Netherlands and is still struggling for that spot with Brighton. And the reason why he did not play is that he got an injury in training. Arya, how much of that will you agree?
Yeah, look, the attack is brilliant. Pezhman summed up really well. The attack is brilliant. We have so many players, even in the periphery, not just Kaiman Sarifard and Ali Poor even. We have more, Moran Luz going to Europe now as well. And you've got, all these players that are Zahedi, Sayed Manesh has got a transfer to Ukraine. So there's so many players that are moving to big European leagues. It's good. But at the same time, the formation that he played, I'm going to speak about is his most important point, is he played a diamond midfield, which we'll get onto, but he played a diamond midfield with a front two of Osman and Taremi, who looked good for the majority of the first half, looked quite good with them two up front. A lot of rotation between them with Poyes of the kind of playing as number 10. The biggest issue I have with a diamond midfielder or a 4-3-1-2 as it's called is the fullbacks have to work unbelievably hard in a diamond formation because they're the ones providing the width. The shuttling midfielders on either side, this time it was Aymeri and Haisafi, have to work extremely hard to support the attack, but they also have to track back and help the fullbacks out. So there's a lot of work that goes in on the flanking players in that formation that I just don't feel like against a bigger team we have the capacity to play that kind of formation. But it was good for him to try it out, because he even said in his press conference that we need to try these formations. We can't just go with a mentality that we're always going to play a 4-2-3-1, because at the end of the day it might not work and someone might get injured and we need to change formation. So it was good that he tried it. It worked well in the first half, so that was a positive. It actually worked well, and we scored 2 goals. And sorry, did we score 2 goals or we scored 1 goal? I think we scored 1 goal in the first half. Yeah, 1 goal, but it was a lot of chances created. Osman I think he had 1 chance in the start of the game that he missed. So it was nice. It was nice that it worked. But as I said, against bigger teams, a diamond midfield is a very demanding formation. You had teams like AC Milan played it with Gattuso and Seedorf playing with Pirlo. That's the kind of players you want, players who work, really hard, not people like Haisafi and Aymeri, who in my opinion, Aymeri's kind of lost his energy. That's why he's playing up front for Persepolis. Haisafi just looked really poor, but we'll get on to that. So yeah, it worked.
Yeah, I did want to say, and we're going to kind of combine with the midfield performance as well. I thought, as you guys alluded to, Allahverdi had a great presence, great technicalities. He seemed to be really, at times, I thought, the only fit midfield player keeping possession, save for a couple times. A bit unfortunate, his teammate Rezai didn't get that many touches when he came in. You almost think that Azmoun could have used a couple of warm-up shots before the game, missing up that opportunity on that goalie blooper outside the box. Obviously made up for it with that goal later on. There is incredible through ball in the second half to Taremi, for which for some reason it looked like he hesitated, shot right to the goalie, not something you expect from leading scorer in Portugal against Uzbekistan in the second half of a game. And by the way, those through balls that in that chance need to happen way more often, I think. Taremi was in a great position to receive the ball, only, of course, his body language seemed surprised to get it, hence the less than stellar finish. And again, this is nitpicking from what we have of the first game in almost a year, which is what we here at Bezan do best, is have to nitpick off of a game or two, and then seeing the big picture, of course. Guys, I want to get your take on this. I did not like the lack of overall possession. It seemed a lot of times they treated kind of a mediocre Uzbek lineup like they were playing, I don't know, Japan's A team or a mid-level UEFA country or something. That goal, by the way, was lazily defended. You can't play kind of a zone presence without any physicality at the top or inside of the penalty box. I didn't think Niazman was positioned particularly well for that goal. I didn't think the lineup had the best rhythm, and they seemed evidently experimental to get the experience. But what's your take on those?
Yeah. So we're speaking about the midfield, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the midfield and overall sync, transitioning. Okay. They would lose the ball often, having to transition back to defense in a hurry.
Well, just on your point on the goal, and I'll let Pezhman speak as well, because I know he's got a lot to say about this, but we conceded a goal that, in my opinion, I would personally, as a big critic of Khalilzadeh, love to criticise him for that, but I don't think it was his fault. I think if you were to blame someone, I think you would really, really put the blame on the midfielders, especially Housafi and Amiri, who just did not look like they wanted to work for this team. No offense to them, because look, let's be honest, they're in their 30s now, and they're still playing in the Persian Gulf Pro League. They don't have to be, running 13 kilometers a game, but at the same time, we want players who can do that. And they didn't work. They didn't track back. They didn't help the defense out, and that's why we conceded the goal. And I think that kind of goal will be conceded many more times against bigger teams. And I think if that doesn't get sorted out, it could be a real issue for us. So we need to get new midfielders in that will do that for us. Who'll work hard and support the defense. But yeah, I want to get Pezhman's thoughts on it.
Well, I think we're underestimating Uzbekistan, to be honest. I think they played a good game. They were really close to score a goal, as we mentioned before, hitting the post. Although Iran had a really strong team, Iran have always struggled against Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan is a tough team. They even beat us on Azadi Stadium, if you guys remember. So winning against Uzbekistan is a good thing, although it's a friendly. But I think we should praise Uzbekistan for their hard work, and they didn't make it easy for Iran. Iran was efficient, and Azmoun, he got a couple of chances and finally was able to score one of those, and that's because he is that good now. And that's what's so important with Iran. We have good players that can create something on their own, or so smart players as in Qolizadeh that can make crucial passes, or such good defenders that can help the team when they're struggling. So this is more like a general answer than the goal itself. I do believe that we can always find a couple of people to blame. Maybe even Niazman could have done something different, but after 90 minutes, I do believe that Uzbekistan, they earned that goal. A draw wouldn't necessarily be that bad either. And it's a friendly. It is what it is. The substitutions and the lack of training. Maybe one of the reasons Allahverdi didn't play was I think he had one training session or something like that before the game. That's pretty hard. And the Niazman, he had already been in a couple of training sessions with the team, with all the players from the Iranian team, had time to prepare themselves in Tehran before going to Uzbekistan. So we should not forget those kind of questions. All in all, respect to Uzbekistan. I always think those games are interesting.
One thing I want to make sure that we do cover, guys, is the analysis of the defenders. Several of them kind of newer faces in terms of Team Melli caps. Was it the right execution? All four of them together, a mix of domestic guys and foreign-based players on the wing. How do we think they did?
For me, Moharami was brilliant. I thought he was fantastic in the part that he played in the game. In the first half, he got forward really well. He linked up with Qolizadeh fantastically well. Created a lot of issues. on the right, and especially in a formation where, like I say, it demands a lot from a fullback. He did offer that demand. He worked really hard. Milad Mohammadi did his job. He worked defensively, very solid. Didn't get forward too much, but he still got enough to cause some issues. But he did really well. The two pairing at the back was Kanoni and Khalid Zadeh, who did well for the majority of the game. In my opinion, Kanoni looked a little bit shaky at some moments in the game. He gave the ball away a few times. He sometimes he makes good passes, especially over the top, but sometimes he just makes a few aimless passes into no man's land, which just go to nowhere, and it does kind of ruin the rhythm of the team. He isn't a bad player, Kanoni. I don't think he's a bad player, but I don't think we need to rely on Kanoni to be a starting centre-back for the national team, which he kind of has become over the last couple of months, or the last couple of games at least. He's kind of become a starting player, which I don't think is the right decision, personally. Khalid Zadeh is a good defender. I've always said this before. I've never criticised Khalid Zadeh on his defensive ability. I think he's a good defender, good pace, very good passer of the ball, can play on both sides, can even play as a fullback. But he does have that switch that, you never know when it's going to be turned on. But he didn't turn it on this game, so that was good. And he was even given the captain's armband, so that was nice to see. But I think we need to see somebody like Majid Hosseini come back into the squad, get his form back at Trabzonspor, playing regularly and making it back into the lineup. Obviously, Prali Ganji as well at some point when he gets fit. And obviously, put us on our Twitter a few days ago, actually, that Iman Salimi is going to go to Europe as well. So that's another option that we have in that position.
I do want to ask this, guys. Should there not be a sense of urgency right now, considering the state of in the table for World Cup qualifying? Because that is ultimately what matters most. So is there, with this lineup, what we saw, the performance, all in all, that considering what you said, Pezhman, should there not be a sense of urgency then?
As Iranian football fans, this is our regular status. We're used to this. Although we had a good session with Kairosh, and we had two big losses in the World Cup qualifiers against Iraq and Bahrain, have put Iran in a tough spot. But I'm 100% convinced that not only will Iran advance to the second stage, or the third stage, to be honest, Iran will win the group as well. Although we have two big losses coming from two big losses. We should not forget that the pandemic is something that's happened to all the players, all the countries in the world. So Iran is no different in that. So why shouldn't Iraq or Bahrain feel the pressure as well? They hadn't had any good time to practice, to train, to play against stronger opponents. The same is with Iran. But the good thing with Iran is that Iran have a lot of European-based players that play against a lot of better players than the Iraqis and the Bahrainis does. And that can be the crucial factor for Iran to win the group. Well, that will be the crucial factor. What do you say about that, Arya?
Yeah, look, I think I don't want to rush the staff. The staff are doing their job well. They did a good camp. Wahid Hashemian did an interview with the Iran Football Federation Instagram account, and he was just saying that give us time. We have to work. We have to work hard. Not trying to put words in his mouth, but alluding to the fact that we had a pretty poor preparation on the Wilmots. We didn't do much analysis. He did say that before himself, that we didn't analyze the games enough. And, that's what happens. You lose games if you don't analyze a team. So I think now with this staff, we can be a bit more optimistic about how we approach the games in the future.
What lineup should we be expecting to see given this Uzbekistan game? And remember, we have a November camp coming up next month. Arya, I want to ask you, what kind of players should we expect to that, and should we expect any friendlies for that?
Yeah, the November camp, we should have 2 friendlies. Pezhman, do you wanna chime in? We'll stop this part here. What do you want to say, Pezhman?
I don't want to say anything. I just wanted
okay.
to see my beautiful face when you're talking.
Okay. Okay, that's motivation for me then. I'll try and make my words a little bit more colourful. Yeah, look, we should have 2 friendlies prepared for November, 100%. You know, that's a minimum now, I think, expectation for the federation, that we prepare our national team the correct way. We have 2 friendlies set up for each camp, for each international break. That's obviously a big ask sometimes for them, but we have to expect this now. We have to do it all the time, and the national team deserve it. We've said this a million times. The national team players 100% deserve, you know, the correct preparation from the federation. You know, they deserve it. They've worked so hard to develop themselves, to move to European clubs. You know, they've done all these things, and they do deserve it. So I hope that does happen.
It will be as usual. We will probably play Syria or Iraq or like.
Well, I think Mali, when they posted their initial cancellation of the match, they actually didn't say cancellation. They said the match is going to be adjourned, which obviously means that it could be returned back. It could be done in a later date. So it might happen again. You might get Mali, and obviously the Ghana Federation were present in the Turkey camp, and they actually spoke to the head of the general secretary of the IFF, Mr. Mohamed Nabi. So a Ghana friendly is also on the cards.
Yeah, sure, but you know, this is Iran, so it will probably be like Benin or Chad or Nigeria, not Nigeria. Nigeria. It will be one of these countries in Africa that doesn't play any football. You know, that's what we're used to. Kenya, maybe.
Madagascar.
About Kenya also. Do you guys remember when Iran played Kenya way back? I don't know, but like it was the time I think Ali Dai played, or we had at least the Dai shirts. The Kenyan players actually forgot their shirts or something like that. So Iran had to, or the Dai company that was the sponsors back then, immediately printed some of their shirts in Iran. So, you know, we have federations worse than Iran.
To our fans, listeners, we want to know your comments from this conversation, the lineup you want to see. If you're listening to this on any of our platforms, on Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, or iTunes, please subscribe and give us a review. We appreciate any and all feedback on there or on social medias. As we always are sure to update our Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and Telegram wherever you may live. So we really appreciate you tuning in, and we want to hear from you, or any thoughts, any suggestions on what Iran should be doing going forward as they try to eventually climb back into a prime spot for qualifying for Qatar 2022. And we have plenty of content to provide you, as we will be sure to update everyone on social media as well. Thanks for listening. We will see you very soon on Bezan.
Hi, it's Dr. Craig Duncan, and you're listening to the Bezan podcast.